Hey folks, wanted to take a look at a few different options for adding some blur to text animations. Okay, so first option is I've simply got a position animation on this text. If I press the P key, there you go. I'm just moving that text in. And first option is to put motion blur on this by clicking on this little square beneath the three circles there. That will enable it for the layer and also turn it on for the composition as a whole, which is here, which can be turned on and off. And you can see that adds a blur to the text as it moves. Okay, and if you want to change the amount of blur, you can go into the composition settings. Okay, advanced. Okay, so if I take that down to, it's usually about 180. You see, if I change these angles, so a small angle. Okay, a little bit more. If I take it up all the way, 720, it's like a full motion blur. Okay, I'll put that back to the 180, this usual thing. Okay, but even at 720, you can still kind of make out the letters a little bit. But so what if I want more blur than that? Okay, I've got a couple of options. So I'm going to turn off the motion blur. Next option is just open up my text layer here. Okay, I'll just drag this up so you can see that more in the middle of the screen. All right. So I'm going to press the U key, see on my keyframes. So if I open up the text layer, one thing I can do here is I've got animator 1. And I've got that set to blur. So if I turn that on, animator 1, there you go. I've got a blur. So I'm going to get rid of that and do it again to show you. I'm going to take animate. And from this animate menu to the right of the word text, I'm going to choose blur. See, I can blur this up like that. I just want it to blur horizontally. So if I uncheck this chain, okay, I can blur it out. Okay, and then I can use the keyframe that. Okay, so I'll add a keyframe at the start, and then just before it stops, I'll add another keyframe, and then as it stops, okay, I'll take that back down to 0. Okay, so you can see I've got a. There you go. Now the thing with this is I can take that up pretty much to the point where it becomes just like a wisp. Okay, so I can increase that blur level a lot more than I can take it to the point where it actually kind of blurs so much that it actually just disappears. So yeah, so you know, I can play back with those keyframes. All right, so that again, I can use the animate menu, add some blur in there, and keyframe the amount of blur as required. Okay, so I'll turn that one off. That's option 2. Do it from the animate menu. And of course, we can also good old effects. Okay, so let's say on this one I've put some direction blur on this. Okay, so you'll find direction blur in the blur and sharpen menu. There is direction blur, which lets you add a blur. If I open up the settings, okay, you've got a direction wheel to choose which direction the blur is going. So I'm going to put it in the direction the text is traveling, which is 90 degrees. Okay, and again, same method. Let me stretch this out so you can see. I'm simply adding keyframes here. Okay, to the blur length. Okay, so I'm starting with a big amount. Let me just reset that. Okay, I'll take that back down to 0. Okay, so you can see there. So I can blur that up, and I can blur it, take that right up, and it's only blurring it horizontally because that's the direction. If I want it vertically, I can change the direction or at an angle. Okay, so you know, you can choose the angle, but for our purposes we're going to go with a straight horizontal blur, 90 degrees. And again, I'll keyframe that back. So I'll set a keyframe here. For the blur length, and then as the text stops, I'll bring that back to 0. So we'll get a big. Okay, so we've got like a more of a streak now. Okay, so that's the third option. Option 1, motion blur. Option 2, the animate menu. Option 3, effects. And of course, with effects, you can combine effects. So if I want to make this a little more kind of ghostly, I can also add a Gaussian blur to that and have 2 blurs. And now it'll become just like a kind of smear. And again, I'll just keyframe that to be a high amount as it moves and 0 when it ends. So I'll get more of a kind of wisp there. Okay. So there's lots of ways you can create these animated texts with blurs. Okay, but that's your 3 options. Each one will give you slightly different results, and pick the one that suits you best. Thanks for watching.